A criminal trial for Trump is set for March 2024, which will hopefully make it harder for him to campaign.
For more on former President Trump's latest court appearance and what this means for his 2024 campaign, I want to bring in former state and federal prosecutor in Miami, Florida, attorney David Weinstein. David, we thank you for joining Top Story tonight. First, I want to ask you broadly regarding this case. Is there a legal precedent for any political candidate running for office to campaign while they're facing a criminal trial?
You know, Tom, none that I'm aware of. A lot of elected officials have been brought to trial after their office term either expired or in the middle of the process. There are various Department of Justice protocols with regard to when you can begin an investigation, conduct an investigation, indict sitting government officials, have an influence on the campaign. But to my knowledge, this is really going to be one of first impression with regard to someone who's running for an elected office, but also facing federal, state criminal charges here.
So, David,
If you're facing, criminal charges of stealing documents and stuff, you shouldn't be able to run for president until after the trial is over and you've been found innocent.
I want to pull up some dates here for you, and hopefully you can see the screen. You can see the trial set for March 25th, right? That's in the middle of the primary season, and it's just after Super Tuesday in critical states like Arizona and Florida. The campaign could possibly be over, or we could just be getting started, right? Do you expect any kind of legal petition to be brought forward to possibly move this trial?
Well, they're going to file another motion to continue. They obviously don't want to have the candidate having to appear in New York on the 25th for 2 or 3 weeks. He'll have to be in court every day. So that is going to impinge on his ability to travel to states to conduct in-person appearances. But Tom, he's a criminal defendant in a pending criminal case. And as such, he's required to appear in court when the judge asks him to do so. The fact that he's also running for office is tangential to all of this. His campaign can proceed, the elections can proceed, the primary.
Yeah, he's not special. You're not special just because you're running for president. That doesn't mean any crimes you've committed and are being investigated or trials that you're going to be going to is going to be, put on the back burner until the campaign for president is over. No, it's going to happen when it's going to happen.
Can.
Yeah. But doesn't the judge sort of have some discretion to say when he's going to set the trial date? Maybe I'm wrong here. You're the lawyer. That's why I'm having you on. But I'm just thinking about this. The judge knows exactly what's at stake here. The primary calendar, anyone can Google. And so now you have this criminal trial date in the middle of the primary season, right? When it's for something President Trump was accused of doing back in 2015. So I'm just wondering here if the judge took any of that into consideration or he doesn't have to.
Well, judges have a great deal of discretion, but they run their courtrooms. The judge wears the robe, and they decide when cases go to trial. Look, Tom, I've had many cases where...
Yeah, nothing can be done. Judge has set the date. If Trump doesn't want to show up, well, that's going to be all on him. If he does show up, and that means he can't campaign as much, well, again, that is also on him.
I didn't like the trial date that the judge picked, whether because it conflicted with something I had going on, my client had going on, and we raise all these issues to the judge. And then it's up to the judge to decide whether or not that's just too bad. And his schedule or her schedule says, this is when I have an opening on my calendar. This is when I can accommodate what's going on. This is when the courthouse can accommodate what's going on. And as a trial lawyer, I have to bend to the will of the court. And if that's when they say I'm going to trial, then my client and I and my team will be in court because that's what the judge said we have to do. I agree with you that given the date and the timing and everything else, that some are going to argue that this is not a good use of discretion, but it's really up to the judge here.
Let me ask you a question. Last question, David. If the Trump team runs out of any type of legal moves and we get to a situation where it's a very heated race, and I know I'm throwing a lot of hypotheticals at you, But we've already seen what sort of the MAGA movement can do when something like January 6th, when something that was based on a lie, that there was no evidence that there was any type of election fraud there. And we saw what that movement can do then, right? And so I want to ask you, if they actually have something to protest about, like we're in the middle of a campaign season, there's a heated race, and now one of the candidates has to go to a criminal trial, do you think that would compel the judge to move the date if there were actually protests? Or would the judge sort of have to sidestep that and overlook that and say, I've set this date and we're going to trial?
The judge is going to have to decide whether it's going to become more difficult to do a number of things. Is it going to be harder to maintain security at the courthouse? Is it going to be more difficult to get a fair and impartial jury who's going to listen to the facts of what's just going on inside the courthouse? The judge really doesn't care whether or not this is going to impact the campaign, because what he's concerned about is, will the defendant get a fair trial? Will the jury be able to decide the case based on the evidence that's submitted inside the courtroom and not what's going on outside? If there's chaos going on outside and it's going to impact on the defendant's ability to get a fair trial, then the judge is going to have to move the case. But that's something we'll all have to wait and see when it comes March 25th. We can all predict what might happen now, but we won't know what's going to happen until March 25th.